Welcome back. So far, we've talked about AI governance in theory. We've discussed the frameworks, the rule books, and the regulators. But theory only gets us so far. Today, we're going to look at the reality. We're going to examine what happens when companies ignore the guardrails and deploy AI without a safety net. I've spent years in incident response, dealing with the fallout of compromised systems. I can tell you that the aftermath of an AI failure is often messier, more public, and more expensive than a traditional data breach. Let's look at three case studies that prove the point. Let's start with a classic example of generative AI gone wrong. In early 2024, Air Canada deployed an AI chatbot on their website to handle customer service inquiries. A customer asked about their bereavement fair policy. The chatbot, hallucinating completely false information, promised the customer a retroactive discount, a policy that did not actually exist. When the customer tried to claim the discount, Air Canada refused. They actually argued in court that the chatbot was a separate legal entity and they were not responsible for its actions. The tribunal disagreed. Air Canada was forced to pay damages. The lesson: you cannot outsource accountability to an algorithm. Under emerging regulations like the EU AI Act, if you deploy the system, you own the outcome. Human oversight isn't just a suggestion, it's a legal necessity. Now, let's look at a systematic failure in fairness and bias. Let's talk about the healthcare sector. A major U.S. hospital network used a widely adopted commercial algorithm to predict which patients needed extra medical care. The problem? The algorithm used healthcare spending as a proxy for healthcare need. Because historically, less money had been spent on Black patients compared to white patients with the exact same level of illness. The algorithm concluded that Black patients were healthier. It systematically prioritized healthier white patients over sicker Black patients. The lesson? This wasn't malicious intent. It was a failure of data governance. They failed to understand the historical bias baked into their training data. Under the NIST AI RMF, you must rigorously map and measure your data sources before deployment. This incident sparked massive regulatory scrutiny and reputational damage that the hospital is still recovering from today in 2026. Finally, let's talk about data privacy, specifically the collision between AI and regulations like the GDPR. In the rush to adopt generative AI, several major corporations, including Samsung, saw their employees paste highly sensitive proprietary source code and confidential meeting notes directly into public tools like ChatGPT to help them work faster. That data was then absorbed by the public model, potentially exposing corporate secrets to competitors. The lesson? The Italian Data Protection Authority briefly banned ChatGPT over privacy concerns, and regulators worldwide are now hyper-focused on how these models ingest data. You cannot have AI compliance without a rock-solid, acceptable use policy. Your employees need to know exactly what data can and cannot be fed into third-party AI tools. These aren't hypothetical scenarios. These are real companies that suffered real financial losses, regulatory fines, and reputational hits. In every single one of these cases, a basic AI governance framework, like the ones we discussed in Lecture 2, would have caught the issue before it became a crisis. In our next lecture, we're going to break down the key terminology you need to know. We are going to demystify terms like machine learning and generative AI so you can confidently lead these conversations in your organization. I'll see you there.